pith. So these are the fundamental types of cells. So that make up a ground tissue, that is the parenchyma, sclerenchyma and collenchyma cells. So these ground tissue which is made up of mainly parenchyma, sclerenchyma and collenchyma. So first one is the cortex. Okay. So here mainly cortex, pericycle and pith. So they constitute the ground tissue system. So here the ground tissue system which is derived from the ground meristem. Okay. So ground meristem. Okay. So ground tissue system which is developed from the ground meristem. So here mainly ground meristem tissue system which constitutes the cortex, pericycle and pith. Okay. So which is made up of these ground tissue system which is made up of parenchyma, sclerenchyma and collenchyma. So first one is the cortex. So cortex, it is the outer layer of the stem or root. So generally epidermis which is followed by the cortex. Okay. So outer layer, that is the cortex, epidermis. So epidermis is followed by the cortex. So lying below the epidermis but outside of the vascular bundles. Okay. So cortex. Cortex, it is an outer layer of the stem or root in plant lying below the epidermis. So epidermis is followed by the cortex but outside of the vascular bundles. So there are two layers in the cortex. So again they based on the arrangement here, the distinct. So based on the arrangement of these what you call tissues. So again it is classified into different types. So mainly two types, that is the hypodermis and endodermis. So again this hypodermis and inner cortex, next endodermis. So here the cortex again classified into hypodermis and inner cortex, and inside again endodermis. Okay. So hypodermis, it is the outer layer of the cortex, and endodermis, it is the inner layer of the cortex. So second one is, so generally these cortex, it is made up of sclerenchyma. So it may be made up of parenchyma cells. So based on the type of plant. So generally in mesophytes, that is parenchyma or collenchyma. Whereas in xerophytes, generally this cortex which is made up of sclerenchyma. Okay. So next one is a pericycle. So which encircling the vascular tissue in the stem and roots, and from where the lateral, so from this pericycle, so lateral roots will develop from develops in the dicot root. Okay, so from the pericycle. So first one is a cortex. Cortex is followed by the endodermis. Endodermis, it is the single layer and it is made up of parenchymatous cells. Okay, and they stores the albuminous starch. Next one is a pericycle. So which encircling the vascular tissues in the stem and roots. So the main function of this pericycle, that is the lateral roots will develop from this pericycle. So the main, so another one is a pith. So it is also called as a medulla. So it is composed of soft, spongy parenchymatous cells. So here the pith or medulla which is made up of parenchymatous cells and which is located in the center of the stem. And it is absent or poorly developed in root. So generally this pith is absent or medulla is absent in the root. So here the important points in this ground meristem is, so ground meristem, ground tissue system which is developed from the ground meristem, and this ground tissue system which mainly cortex, pith and pericycle. So these constitute the ground tissue system. And next one is the main functions. So here generally this cortex, it is differentiated into hypodermis and general cortex. So here the differentiation, hypodermis and general cortex are inner cortex. And generally, so this hypodermis, which is the collenchymatous in stems and leaves of the dicot. Okay. So whereas sclerenchymatous in leaves of monocot. So here the tissues, the cortex, it may be, that is general tissue which may be made up of sclerenchymatous cells in the stems of stems and leaves of the monocots. Okay. Next, to the main functions of this cortex is it is also helps in the primarily the protective tissue, and also it may be useful for the storage of food materials and also for the carrying out the photosynthesis. Generally, it is generally cortex which is made up of parenchyma cells. So these cells contain the chloroplast and also helps in the photosynthesis. So if the cortex which is made up of collenchyma and sclerenchyma, so it may be helps in the mechanical support. Okay. So next one, endodermis. So it is a single layer of compactly arranged cells. Okay. So generally these endodermis, it is also a living cell and they may contain starch, tannins and mucilage. So generally due to generally in the endodermis, they store the starch grains. So hence it is also known as the starch sheath in dicot stem. Okay, starch sheath. Endodermis, it is also known as the starch sheath. So the main functions is this endodermis. It acts as a watertight dam between the xylem and surrounding tissue. And here, this due to presence of these passage cells in the endodermis, which also serve as the passage of water from the cortex to the xylem vessels. So this endodermis also helps in that is passage of water from the cortex to the xylem vessels through these passage cells. Okay. So pericycle. So the main functions of the pericycle is in dicot root, the cells of pericycle become meristematic and form the vascular cambium and cork cambium in dicot roots. Okay. It also gives roots, pericycle, lateral roots will be developed from the pericycle. So another one is, so sometimes in some plants, this pericycle region also has the secretory cells, that is the latticephers, and helps in the they secrete the secretory cells like latticephers. Okay. So another one is the medulla. Okay. So medulla, the main function of the pith or medulla is the storage of food materials, and also generally they are parenchymatous. But when the sclerenchymatous cells are developed, so which gives a mechanical support. So this is about the tissue systems. So first one is the epidermal tissue system. Second one is the ground meristem, ground tissue system, and third one is the vascular tissue system. Okay, so in the ground epidermal tissue system, that is trichomes, stomata, and root hairs. So these are the outgrowths of the epidermal tissue system. So vascular tissue system, xylem and phloem. Whereas the ground tissue system, that is cortex, endodermis, pericycle, and medulla constitute the cortex, ground tissue system. So epidermal tissue system, which is developed from the protoderm or dermatogen. Second one, that is the ground tissue system, which is developed from the ground meristem, and third one, that is the vascular tissue system, which is developed from the procambium. Okay, so this is about the tissue systems. Sir. Okay,
Madam, anyway, thank you very much, madam. Regarding of this class, if you have any doubt, my dear friends, please interact with our respected madam. Madam has clearly explained about the tissue system, how the tissue are formed from cells, and tissues are going to form tissue system, and tissue system going to form organ, and organ is going to form organ system. Then finally, the organism has existed. So in this regard, if you have any doubt in plant tissue systems, especially the ground meristematic tissue and vascular tissue system, ground tissue, epidermal tissue system, if you have any doubts, please ask our respected madam. Madam, please interact our respected participants. I have given to unmute the participants. My dear friends, any doubts? Come on. Any doubts? Deepthi, Manasa, Maria Mahevi, Nafis. Boliyama. Any doubt? Okay. No, sir. Okay. Okay, madam, thank you very much. It is a wonderful session because of each and every point is a point to point you have explained very excellent manner. And also students are very happy to enjoy in your class, madam. So thank you very much. Tomorrow, same time, we will going to join in our Zoom cloud meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Right, madam.